Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Spitz on Blog Talk Radio. It is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another Restoration. Glad to be here. 6:30 in the morning, Friday morning, September 23rd, and just having some coffee, waking up. And this is just a morning reflection, really looking at what I can do, what I need to work on for my healing journey, and just looking at some information, positive reinforcement, some coping mechanism stuff, and self-care, whatnot. And so thanks, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning into my shows. And I used to have the chat room open, but I find that because the show is on so early in the morning, I just, nobody's really sitting there. Most people catch my show on archive. So I just haven't been putting the chat room open lately. Sorry about that. I used to pop the links in there and everything. And But you're welcome to sit here with me, and I appreciate everybody who's taking the time to listen to my shows. It's very, very nice of you. It's a lot of work to keep up with what I'm doing, a lot, because I know it's a half an hour out of your day, just like it's half an hour out of my day. So I appreciate that, and I hope these shows are interesting enough or helpful enough for other people, other survivors, or people who know someone who's been abused or that sort of thing, or just interested in my story. So thanks for your support. I really appreciate it. So we'll get right into this. If you're a survivor of abuse, you want to do a safety checklist. Make sure that you're safe enough to be listening to these shows. Anything like this, dealing with child abuse, because, that can trigger a survivor, and can trigger us, and then we might just end up having a miserable day or not being able to cope, and then, maybe thinking about self-injuring or self-harm or harming someone else. You want to make sure that you're safe enough to be listening so that doesn't happen. And get that information from, several places you can get it, but you can get it from Havoca.org, H-A-V-O-C-A, Havoca.org, or that's Help for Adult Victims of Child Abuse, or ASCA, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse. A Morris Center program has that Survivor to Thriver workbook. It's like a manual. And that's free. You can go there and get that information for free just to learn how to keep yourself safe, right? So thanks, everybody. We'll get right into this. This morning, we're going to pick up where we left off and looking at this acronym from Cheryl from Havoca, H-A-V-O-C-A, Havoca.org. And she's written up, she has the letters for adult survivors of sexual abuse. She's written up an acronym using those letters. But she said these are really good for anybody who's been abused. It doesn't have to be sexual abuse, right? And they're interesting, I think. So, we're looking at the O in of, because she's got here adult survivors of. So we're on the of section here, and she's for the letter O. Open your eyes and see things as they really are. Don't be blinded by your past. Your eyes are the windows to your soul. Let them guide you toward a better future filled with hope and happiness. Oh, that's nice. And that's awesome. Open your eyes and see things as they really are. Don't be blinded by your past. Your eyes are the windows to your soul. Let them guide you forward or toward a better future filled with hope and happiness. That's awesome. Yeah, well, this is this is the thing. It's I think it's important not to be in denial. Maybe sometimes we have to be in denial about certain things just because in order to cope for a while, But I think that it's important to face things. So what she's saying is true. Open your eyes, but see things as they really are. So as an adult, this is where, as far as the issues that survivors like myself can have is that I spend a lot of time in looking at the past, and so I'm not really living in the now, so much. Some of the times, I spend a lot of time looking back instead of looking forward. So I like what she's had to say here. It is important for me to look back. It was. I don't know about anybody else. I really can't speak for other people. I know for myself that I really needed to do that so I could actually figure out what happened and what caused me to do what I did and what caused me to make the choices that to push me in the direction to make choices that I made in my youth and in my young adult life, right? So it's helpful to look back, and I needed to do it, and I also needed to acknowledge the abuse. So in order to do that, I had to look back, so it was important for me to do that. But we don't want to stay stuck always looking in the past and not focusing on today, the here and the now, which is that I'm an adult, I'm not being abused anymore. I did have to cut my toxic family off, my toxic abusive family off, the rest of the members, because they're not on a healing journey. They're just continuing on in their mental sickness, so emotional illness and all this other stuff, abusive behavior. So I cut them off, and we were so toxic around each other. Not just them being toxic to me. It was an issue where we grew up so toxic together that we could not be in the same room together without hurting each other, which is horrible. Emotionally, psychologically, not necessarily physically as adults. We weren't fighting and duking it out that way. We were just so cruel, so incredibly cruel to each other, with little passive aggressive stuff going on, and really heartless stuff. And we were all doing it. It's not just me or not just them. So I just decided, I'm on a healing journey. I'm trying to heal and grow and change my behaviors, and they're not. So I decided it's just too much. So I had to cut them off, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm an adult now. I'm living in the here and now, and I do need to look back just to make some progress in my healing journey, but I don't want to stay there throughout the day. So I've had to learn how to cut myself off. I think that's why I find these shows helpful because I can spend a half an hour in the morning working on this stuff and about a half an hour before, maybe half an hour later. So about an hour or so in the morning devoted to my healing journey, because the rest of the day is just so busy, right? So I don't have a lot of time to work on stuff like that. So, it's quite helpful. But yeah, we need to allow ourselves to think about our future too, not just the past, and moving us towards a better future filled with hope and happiness. I really like that. So that's awesome. So we'll move on to the next part. We're looking at this Havoka inner child work stuff, feeling the feelings. This is it's not the last section, but it's one of the last sections here. But it's quite interesting. And yesterday we were looking at it's boundary stuff, basically emotional type stuff. Emotion is energy, so energy just cannot just disappear. The emotional energy generated by the circumstances of our childhood and early life does not just go away because we were forced to deny it. So it's still trapped in our body. This is Havoka again, Havoca. They said it's still trapped in our body in a pressurized explosive state as a result of being suppressed. So if we don't learn how to release it in a healthy way, it will explode outward or implode back in on us. And eventually it will transform into some other form, such as cancer. So this is a real problem for people. I know for myself it was, and it still is it today. I mean, not as much as it was because I've actually worked through a lot of my issues. But number two, she's if it's Cheryl writing this, I'm not sure who wrote this up, but Havoka wrote this up. Number two, as long as we have pockets of pressurized emotional energy that we have to avoid dealing with, those emotional wounds will run our lives. So we use food, cigarettes, alcohol, and drugs, work, religion, exercise, meditation, television, etc., to help us keep suppressing that energy. So they write here to help us keep ourselves focused on something else, anything else besides the emotional wounds that terrify us. So the emotional wounds are what cause obsession and compulsion, and are what the critical parent voice works so hard to keep us from dealing with. That's really quite interesting. And that's true. I know. I mean, even just looking at myself, I know that's what I've been doing my whole life. Really, is keeping all this stuff suppressed. Because it was just too painful, too difficult to deal with. So I used drugs. I didn't really use alcohol. I wasn't really into that. I use cigarettes today. That's what I'm still smoking. Is it just the addiction, or am I still suppressing stuff? I'm sure I'm still trying to suppress that trauma, right? Work, religion, exercise, anything. We could use anything actually as a means to keep all that stuff suppressed, right? And sometimes we have to, because things, I know for myself, I really don't have time to actually do the real work that I need to do, like I was talking about yesterday, because my husband's terminally ill. I can't do that work around him, and I really don't want to be. We don't have the kind of money that it would take for me to go to a retreat and actually get some help, on working with this stuff, and then have somebody help watch him for 2 or 3 weeks while I'm gone. We're not well off, right? We live paycheck to paycheck. Like, we're really, I consider myself to be well off because I grew up in the gutter. So, where I'm at today compared to where I was as a child growing up with nothing, really. Well, I had a roof over my head. We always had a roof over our head. And, but it was, it was minimal. It was very minimalist. I didn't grow up with any extras, right? And so as an adult, I feel like people would look at my situation and say, well, you're not doing that great. And it's like, I look at my situation, I'm doing great. I'm not on the street, I'm not using drugs, I'm not being abused anymore. I'm getting help, I'm reaching out, I have a job, I'm really thankful for what I have. And so I look at myself as being extremely well off. Even though, we don't own our own home, we don't, we're just kind of living paycheck to paycheck. But it's all in how you look at things. So, you know, um, yeah, I don't have the time to really go do this stuff to actually allow myself to work through this stuff. So I do use, I'm sure, cigarettes, food, and everything else to just to keep things as they are, because I really can't go do that incredibly tense work that I need to do to get over the abuse that I suffered as a child in that manner. The only thing I've been able to do really is make a lot of peace with, a lot more peace than I ever had in my lifetime, in my healing journey here, with my life, with myself, with my past, you know what I mean? So it has helped a lot to do what I've been doing on my healing journey, but I still have a lot of work to do. And so these emotional wounds, they're saying are what caused the obsession and compulsion stuff going on in our life, and that critical parent voice works to keep us from dealing with what we need to deal with. So that's interesting. Yeah, so it's tough, I know. And eventually I'd like to get to the bottom of it so that I can get over my addictions, right? Which is mainly just cigarettes and coffee is not really an addiction for me. I just really enjoy coffee. But the cigarettes are definitely a stronghold in my life, and it's a real problem, as well as food is an issue. And food is not that much of an issue. I don't have too much issues, but I'm always a little overweight because I really enjoy eating. I like food. I like food. And I used to cook and cooked for many years in the kitchens, as just on the line, doing cooking. And I used to love cooking. And so I like being around food, I like that it's exciting, cooking and sharing food with people. It's an awesome thing to do. And, good conversations come around food, right? Come around a nice meal. And, but I'm really into cigarettes as well, but I'm really thankful that I'm off the drugs and I don't drink. I don't even allow myself to drink because I know I have an addictive personality, right? So I don't really drink at all. So I'm really happy about that. Thankful that I'm not involved in that stuff or using drugs. So I'm happy that I'm able to cope with just what I'm using because it's legal. And it's expensive and it's hard and it's really damaging to the body, but cigarettes, but it's just what it is, right? So eventually I'd like to get off of, I'd like to completely quit that addiction. In order to do it, I know that I'm going to have some work to do. This because of the abuse, and I still have some work to do. So this is interesting to look at. So we'll pick up number 3, not tomorrow, but Monday. And what do I want to look at here? Positive reinforcement. What are we doing right in our daily walk? Instead of just looking at the negatives all the time, what one little thing can I say that I'm doing right? As far as moving toward healing and getting my life organized and self-care, and what am I doing right? Well, I'm just happy that I'm continuing on in my healing journey. And like I said, I joined a group. It's a survivor group, and that makes me really happy because I have some other people that I can talk to and share with, and who understand where I've been, and who know what it is to be sexually abused, and so that's really helpful for me. So I'm glad that I did that. That's a positive in the right direction. As well as as survivors of abuse, right? I mean, it's good to have somebody that you can talk to that understand where we've been, and how hard it is. So, and they do. So it's good. So, and also just continuing on my journey, and trying to do some more self-care stuff, which I think is really important. So that's looking at some positives instead of, what have I not done, right? Which is a lot of things, because I don't have a lot of time to work on a lot of stuff. So, a positive affirmation for this morning that I could say would be, and these are from Positive Affirmations. This was from, even though they don't have any more information there, I went to look, heartswithsoul.com. There's really relatively hardly any information on that website. But they did happen to have this really cool set of positive affirmations for under their child abuse tab, and that's all they had there. So it's heartswithsoul.com. You can check it out. But this next one up is, I feel great potential for myself. Yesterday's was, I feel great hope, and this morning is I feel great potential for myself. Well, that's awesome. I feel great potential for myself. I could walk around saying that all day, but do I believe it? Absolutely. Great potential for myself. I really don't set very, too high of goals that I know are unobtainable. I just set obtainable goals because I know it's a real letdown when, it's like I feel great potential for myself. I'm going to I'm going to become a millionaire tycoon, and I'm not going to set those kind of goals that are way out of reach. I just set these little goals for myself. I feel great potential for myself. Well, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it on my healing journey. That's one goal that I know I'll be able to manage. I'm going to make it, and I'm going to one day walk free from the pain and from the abuse. I'm going to be able to walk free from the anger and the rage. I still have some of that going on a little bit, and be able to say, wow, I'm healed. So I feel great potential for myself in that area, as well as just great potential that I can do it, no matter what comes my way, because life is tough, and life throws some curveballs, and some of these things are really difficult to get through, and I just feel great potential for myself that I can actually manage and do it, and even if I have to reach out for some help, that I can actually do it, and make it, and cope and learn how to cope and deal with things. I don't really set these maybe other types of goals that other people would set, because my main, the things that I'm looking for in life might be a little different than what everybody else is looking for. I'm not looking for material goods, so, or like a career type thing so much. It's just that I want to finish off my life, knowing that the abuse that I won over the abuse, that I'm the one that's victorious over the abuse, and that the abuse could not destroy me, right? And what I went through as a child could not destroy me, even though it surely almost did for a long time. But now I can actually say, no, I'm winning this fight, I'm winning this battle, and I'm the one that's going to come out ahead, because at the end of the road, I'm the one that actually wins, because I learned to love myself, and I learned to love other people, and I learned to not have hatred in my heart, and to be good and kind to people, be good to myself, and to appreciate the little things in life, and to know and experience real love and what that really is, and to know that I have the choices and the right and the power to say, that it's my choice that no one ever abuses me again, and to make good friends, friends that are, hey, everybody makes mistakes, everybody has the potential to hurt somebody, but good friends that actually care enough that when they do hurt me, they're going to apologize, they're going to say they're sorry. And the same for me, the same goes for me, right? That I can have these relationships, these meaningful relationships, these types of things. At the end of the road, that's really what the important stuff to me in life, right? And so then I can look back and say, they couldn't kill me. My abusers couldn't kill me. They couldn't get me to kill myself. That's my goal. That's my victory, right? And so I don't, not so much looking at sort of the same things that maybe somebody else is looking at for goals, right? And these are much more important to me than that other stuff. So I feel great potential for myself, and I think that's awesome. That's something good to think about today. Self-care, what do we do physically, spiritually, emotionally to care for ourselves? What areas do we need to work on? This is something that I always have to ask myself. Spiritually, I'm doing great. I'm really 100% spiritually well person. Emotionally, I'm working on it. I'm doing good. I feel pretty good, pretty emotionally stable right now. I don't have very many ups and too many highs, too many lows. I'm very balanced right now. I feel pretty good. Even when I kind of hit a little bit of a low spot, a little rut, I'm able to pull myself out, and without any real trauma or damage. So I'm actually learning how to deal with things, which is great. And physically, that's my issue. I need to take care of my body, and so that's what I'm working on. I'm working on learning to love my body, because I have learned to love myself, but that's not my body. So I'm learning how to love my body. I'm really working on it, and to take care of it, right? To be good to it. And it's hard for me because I was just so horrifically abused for so many years by so many different people. And then self-abuse, Then I abused myself by doing drugs and really not taking care of myself, and wrecking cars and just doing a lot of crazy, dangerous things with my body, rolling down mountainsides, on crutches and stuff. And I really didn't take care of myself, and that's just because I was abused, And so now it's like, okay, I'm really trying to take care of my body. I'm trying to connect with my body, which is hard for me, because I hated my body for so long. I didn't want anything to do with it. I'm like, it just drags me around, but I don't care about it, right? And now I'm trying to learn to connect with it in a loving manner, and I'm still working on that. So that's why I'm want to get into yoga and do some beginning yoga because that's what I need to do, and meditation and stretching and just allowing myself to be in my body and actually to love my body, to nurture my body, right? I nurture my spirit all the time. And myself, I mean, as far as my mind, my will and emotions, that's fine, but it's my physical body. I really need to care about it so that it can continue to carry me on here for the rest of my days. So it's difficult for a lot of people. I know for myself, I'm actually just was able to see that about myself. I think there's more people actually that experience that don't realize that that's an issue for them because maybe they've never thought about it, or maybe it just never came to them that that's what's going on within their life because of abuse or whatever, that they don't care about their bodies. But for myself, I know that that's an issue for me because I wanted to self-injure, and I was really, suicidal ideation was a big part of my life, as well as self-injuring, and I knew why I was doing it. It's not like I didn't know, So the issue is now as I'm working through my healing journey, I realize that I really haven't done a whole lot to work on that part of myself, which is to take care of my physical body and actually get in touch with it and allow myself to learn to love my body and take care of it. So I realize that, but a lot of people I think don't realize that. Maybe they have that going on, but it's not always something that people deal with. I know that I'm just one person who does deal with that, but there are other people that deal with that too. It's not necessarily common, but it can be an issue. So that's why I wanted to look and see kind of a daily checklist, like what am I doing to help myself? What am I doing as far as progress? How can I sort of do a checklist? And that's why I'm doing this show. Really, it keeps me accountable, so that I'll keep working on this stuff. Right? Personal Bill of Rights. We're almost finished with this one. This is Charles H. Whitfield, and he's got a personal Bill of Rights here, Healing the Child Within. This is from Charles H. Whitfield, M.D., and we are on number 37. It says, "I have the right to give and to receive unconditional love." Oh, I love that one. That's really good. I have the right to give and to receive unconditional love. That's right. And really, as an adult, I've experienced love. As a child, I didn't experience any real love or care or anything like that. So, not even conditionally. So it wasn't there. It wasn't there conditionally or unconditionally. It just wasn't there. So I had to learn how to accept and receive love, and also how to give love, real love though. Not just, well, if you do this for me, I'll love you. if you jump through hoops and do this for me, I'll love you. Not that kind of stuff. Real love and care, unconditional, right? And so, love came into my heart May 22nd, 2007. That's really when my healing journey began. And hatred was pushed out. Love came in to fill that void. And I'm really thankful. So, yeah, I have learned a lot about love in the last almost 10 years. And what's real love? What is real love, And, yeah, it's just an awesome thing. I have the right to receive and to give love unconditionally. That's awesome. I love that. So we'll look at, Voca actually has some affirmations, too. We'll pick up those after we finish off this personal Bill of Rights. Irving Studios has a coping list type thing, and they also have boundary work on their website. This is from Michael C. Irving. He's a sculptor, coach, and counselor. He's actually a survivor of abuse himself. He worked in psychotherapy and stuff, so he's PhD. He knows his stuff, and he's a doctor. And he's got a website called Child Abuse Survivor Monument, or you can find it by just typing in your browser Irving Studios, Michael C. Irving. He's got a website there, and under this tab, we were looking at this boundary work. So he was saying, during child, we already went through this stuff. During child abuse, boundaries are totally ignored, violated, and shattered, right? So then he says, part of the healing and coping process for survivors of abuse is to reconnect with the inner sense of boundary, right? Or to connect with it for the first time. Because the issue is growing up abused many times or in a dysfunctional home, these boundaries don't exist, right? And so that's a real problem. Like the way that I grew up in a home with, there was no boundaries. They were, from the time I was born, and the whole time I was growing up, there was no no healthy boundaries. So because my parents didn't set anything healthy up for us, and they were abusing each other, and they were mentally ill, and my dad was psychologically ill as well. So they were just really screwed up, and they didn't set up any proper boundaries or anything like that for us. So everybody in the home was just really screwed up. Um, and so we looked at this identifying boundary section: physical distance, emotions, time, space, thoughts, right? And now he's got this creating cognitive boundaries. This is really interesting. He's got a list here that we can actually do as survivors of abuse to create a cognitive boundary. So I think this is really interesting. So this list here he's got, and this is we'll go through a few of them here. It says, remember the best time to gain control of panic, anger, or fear is early, before it gets really going. So we're supposed to, if you can gain control of panic before it really gets going, that's helpful, right? So whether it's anger, panic, or fear, right, we need to get a hold of it and get control of it before it gets to be a real problem. Just consciously think about how you feel and what you need to say. This is cognitive boundaries. Consciously think about how you feel and what you need to say. Literally, we have to think about this. Visualize a barrier around negative emotions. I've actually done that. Visualize a barrier around negative emotions. See a barrier or wall between you and what you want to keep out. And so, for instance, if I'm having flashbacks of my abusers abusing me, then I can put up a barrier or a wall between me and them and actually keep them out if I want to focus on something else. Let's say during the day. This is cognitive boundaries, right? This is it was an issue for me, especially working, before I started really making too much progress on my healing journey. I was still having a lot of flashbacks, and even throughout the day. And at work, all of a sudden I'd have a flashback, and I'd have to deal with that. Nobody would know that was going on with me, but I was. It was a little disruptive, you know what I mean? And so I wish that I knew this stuff at that time. See, but I had to learn it, right? So this is the issue. We could see a barrier or wall between me and whatever I want to keep out, right? Visualize a protective bubble around you. I actually have done that in the past. Visualize a protective bubble around you. I did. I put a bubble of protection around myself for a long time because I really felt I was being attacked by somebody spiritually, because one of my friends had really dumped me out of her life, and she lived like on just 2 floors down from me, and I really felt the negative energy coming from her. I could feel it. I was like, oh man. So I put this protective bubble around me because I was stuck living in this sweet couple, just a little ways away from her. And I thought, man, I think she's sending me some negative vibes or something. So in order to protect myself, I put that protective bubble around myself. It was really helpful. Imagine or even verbalize that you now have control over your body, your boundaries, and the abuser. That's right. Imagine or even verbalize. I could do this. I could imagine or verbalize, excuse me, that I now have control over my body, boundaries, and my abuser. That's right. And we can assert boundaries out loud to our abuser. It says, assert boundaries out loud to your abuser without them there. Yeah, I mean, really, some of us are still stuck living with our abusers. I'm not, thank God, But I know that that's not always the case. There's many, many survivors out there the abuser is still around, right? Still, and still maybe threatening their lives, or, who knows, right? So you have to be really, really careful. And if you are being abused right now, you get some help. And you make sure that, because abuse is a crime, people. It's an actual crime punishable by the law. So, you make sure that you get to safety and get some help, right? But these are just things that creating cognitive boundaries. So we'll pick up the rest of this on Monday. We've got a minute left. So yeah, I just really wish you a good weekend. I hope that you take good care of yourselves. Be really kind and good to yourself. Don't just be good to other people. Be good to yourself. And I know that's what I'm going to do this weekend. And I'm going to do some inner child healing work that I need to work on, and stuff like that. Meditation and whatnot. So I'll be working on some of that this weekend and taking good care of myself. So I ask you to do the same thing, and like I say in all my stuff here, if you're struggling and having a hard time, you reach out and get some help. There's no shame in that. The real shame is when a survivor doesn't get help and just ends up suffering on and on and on. That's a shame. That's what happened to me. And so, that's the real shame. Reaching out, there's no shame in that, And there's no shame in the fact that I was abused as a child. That shame does not belong to me. I didn't ask for that. Nobody does. And so, the shame is on the abuser. That's where the shame is. So, we do deserve to get help. We deserve that help, and we deserve to have a good life just like everybody else. And so you make sure you get the help that you need, right? And do not ever give up. And I wish you a really good weekend. And until Monday morning, take good care of yourselves. Bye-bye.